Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos, Parshas Mishpatim, Parshas Shabbos Shkolim. Getting close to Rosh Chodesh Adar. In this week's Parsha, the Torah tells us in Kesef Talves Ami that if you're going to lend money to my people, es ha'ani imach, a person who is impoverished, le'sia le'kenosha. So you shouldn't beat him like a creditor, lo sesimon of neshach, and you shouldn't make him pay interest. The Torah goes on to tell us a few of the laws about lending money. Don't press him for money if he can't pay. You can't charge him interest. But when the Torah introduces the concept of lending money, the Torah uses the word im kesef talve. Normally we translate the word im as if. Rashi here points out that this is one of the exceptions in the Torah, one of three exceptions. Rabbi Yishmael Eimer, kol im ve'im sheb'Torah rishus, chutz mi-gimel. That the word im always means rishus, if, except for three places. And in three places, v'zeh echad mehem, this is one of those places that it means when. When you lend him money. Because at the end of the day, it's a mitzvah to lend money. Rashi himself talks about it in other places. It's a mitzvah to lend money. So then you have to ask the $1 million question. Why make an exception to a word? Why not just use the word that you need to use? Why use a word out of context? Say im here doesn't mean if, it means when. Just use the word when. Use kasher. Kasher, talve, kesef, la'ami. When you lend money to somebody from a nation. Why use the word im? Why use the word if? You know, there's a very interesting discussion about why certain mitzvahs get brachos, like the mitzvah of tefillin, the mitzvah of tzitzis, the mitzvah of shofar, and some mitzvahs don't get brachos. The mitzvah of tzedakah, the mitzvah of kibbud av v'eim. Some want to say because mitzvahs that are bein adam lechaveiro, they don't get mitzvahs, they don't get brachos, mitzvahs that are between one man and God, so then they do get brachos. According to the Tshuvas HaRashba, the reason that we don't get a bracha on the mitzvah of kibbud av v'eim, the mitzvah of tzedakah, and mitzvahs like that, is because when another person is involved, and the completion of the mitzvah is totally in their acceptance, so then you can't make a bracha. Because what happens if they don't accept? If they don't accept, the mitzvah is not done, you've made a bracha, and there you are dangling in the air, and there's no ability to be able to complete the act, but yet you've already made the bracha. So why not figure out a way that even when another person is involved, you can make the bracha, and you don't have to, it's not dependent on whether they complete it or whether they accept it or not. Ask them beforehand, you going to take the money I'm giving you? Are you going to take the act that I'm doing for you? Are you going to accept this? And if the answer is yes, then okay, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, and make the bracha. There's ways around this. So what does it mean that when another person is involved, so then we can't make a bracha because the completion of the act is dependent upon them? So what? Why should that get in the way of a bracha? So I think that you know what the real problem is imagine you approach your parents and you're about to perform the mitzvah of kibbud av v'eim, and instead of saying, Mom, Dad, how you doing? They're home. They're going to accept what you're doing for them. And you approach and you say a bracha. You say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, and then you give them the kugel you brought them. You give them the cake you got them. You give them the groceries that you went shopping for. And what you're doing for them is that you're objectifying them as an opportunity to fulfill a mitzvah. And all the warmth that was supposed to be conveyed through that mitzvah of kibbud av v'eim, all the love that they were looking for, now went out the window. Because you just turned it in to an obligation. There's no question that you have an obligation. There's no question that you have a chiyuv. It's in the Aseres HaDibros. Kabed es avicha v'yasimecha. The parameters of that are clear. But that's not what you convey when you do the mitzvah. What you convey when you do the mitzvah is, I love you, I care about you, I'm thinking about you. You don't have to use your money when you do the mitzvah. You can use their money when you do the mitzvah of taking care of your parents. Because what you're conveying is the hakaras hatov, the gratitude for giving you life. You're conveying the love and the care and the concern for your parent. And the minute you make that bracha, you've now objectified them. You've turned this into an opportunity to do a mitzvah, and you have sucked it dry from all of that emotion and all of that feeling. And maybe that's the reason why when another person's involved, we don't make a bracha, because we want to convey a certain message. The same is true when we do chesed. The way we do chesed, the way we lend money to another person is critical, because we don't want to embarrass them. We don't want to take something away from them. We want to add something to their lives by giving them, by doing this chesed. And therefore the Torah introduces the mitzvah of chesed, the mitzvah of lending money, with the im kesef. It's not telling you that you don't have an obligation. For you, it's a kasher. It's when you lend them money, because you're obligated to lend them money. But they have to walk away feeling that you had an option, that you care about them, that you stepped out of yourself to do something for them, because they need to feel like they've been built up. In Kesef Talva is not an instruction to the giver about his obligation. In Kesef Talva is an instruction to the giver about the way he needs to make the receiver feel. We have many, many obligations in our lives. Many things that we have to do. One of our greatest challenges is to turn those obligations into gifts. Is to turn those obligations, to infuse them with a sense of giving with love and of giving with concern, so that the person who's receiving that gift from us feels not that we were doing something that was obligatory, but that we were doing something from the depths of our heart. It's a challenge, but that's the challenge that the Torah is giving us. To take a kasher kesef talva la'ami, to take an obligation to do something, and to turn that obligation into an im, into an if, into an option, into something that's coming with a feeling like it's a choice, like I love this, I love to do this, I want to do this for you. And this applies not only to mitzvahs ben adam lechavero, but it applies also to mitzvahs ben adam lemakam. To turn our obligations into free will offerings. To take our obligations and the things that of course we need to do, but to turn them into acts of love. To turn them into acts of a desire to connect with Hashem. To go far beyond the sense of kasher and to turn it into a sense of im, of a desire, of a ratzon, of a will to serve him. That's our challenge. And that's what we need to rise to. To take the kasher in life and to turn it into an im. To turn it into something that comes from the very depths of my desires and my existence. We should have an amazing, beautiful Shabbos. Shabbos, everyone.